Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Autism Stories. I'm your host, Doug Bletcher, the founder of Autism Personal Coach. Autistic people are the true experts of the autistic experience, and Autism Stories is where we interview autistic people to learn from their diverse stories, experiences, and get their insights. If you would like to be notified about each week's episode of Autism Stories, we suggest you subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platform. We would also appreciate it if you could give us a positive rating and review, as it will help others to learn about autism stories. On today's episode, William Fitzgerald and Jenny Palmetto join this episode to discuss the feature film Ezra that is playing nationwide now in the United States. We hope you enjoy today's conversation. William, thanks so much for joining me here on Autism Stories.
You're welcome.
I'd love to start out our conversation by learning, where does your story in the autistic community begin?
I had some trouble in elementary school, and it was around that time I found out I had ADHD. Then a little later, I found out I had autism. So I like to say I am 50% ADHD and 50% autism. Now I go to school where they help me with both.
Currently, the film Ezra is playing nationwide here in the United States, and you have a major role in the film and gave what I thought was an amazing performance. I wanted to ask you about a scene in the film that relates to my experience as an autistic person. So not to give any spoilers for those that haven't seen the film, but in that scene in which I'm referring to, it was believed by the adult characters in the film that you put yourself in danger. However, it was later discovered as your character communicated that wasn't the case, but no one really had asked you. So as autistic people, we have communication differences, and in many cases, that's with non-autistic people. So what might be some important things for people to know about in order to best communicate with you and not to have some of those differences cause communication problems?
I usually want people to be simpler. For example, the director, Tony Goldwyn, likes to talk a lot about the script and the scene, but I usually wanted short explanations. But I also want to know what's coming next. So when my family watches movies, I want my parents to give me like a simple plot without saying this movie is about something random, which is kind of what they usually do. It's not helpful.
I understand, William. I get overwhelmed by too much information. I need to keep it simple and just give me as few words as possible in explaining something. So my experience is I've been interviewed a couple times on TV, but it's nothing like the amount of time I'm sure you were on set for the film Ezra. So with all the lights, sounds, and people, I can imagine that it could be an overwhelming experience at times being on set. But I'm wondering, what was this experience like for you? And were there things you did during filming to reduce any overwhelm you might have encountered on set?
I didn't find the set experience overwhelming. I liked all the cameras and equipment, and I was interested in what the crew was doing. Also, my tutor and I tossed a volleyball around in between takes. What I did find overwhelming was the red carpet stuff, flash photography, crowded rooms, and a lot of talking was all. So to manage that, I took breaks and I found quiet places in the gray room.
Yes, I've seen you on TV. I saw you on The View the other day. Is it the in-person red carpet stuff that's the most overwhelming? Just there's a lot to process, I would imagine.
I have a little system. If I ever walk out in front of a crowd, I close my eyes, maybe open them a bit and go like, and then once I stand in front of the crowd, I sort of get my bearings.
Makes sense. I feel like it's beyond impressive that this was your first film and how good you were in your role. So I'm wondering, are there types of acting roles or stories you want to tell in the future, whether it's film, TV, or perhaps theater?
I've been working on an anime about a pirate crew with disabilities trying to overthrow an evil pirate emperor who, heavily inspired by One Piece, trying to overthrow an evil pirate emperor who sort of made a law that no pirate can have a disability because he thinks it's like a weakness to the sea. So this pirate crew wants to overthrow the pirate emperor and sort of create a free world. Not really any government or something like that.
I love that. So I guess I was wondering, kind of thinking about the future as well. Are there things that you wanted to pursue other than acting?
I wanted to be a history teacher at times. One thing, that's what I kind of wanted to be when I grow up. If that doesn't work out, then maybe a YouTuber. I can promote the movie on YouTube, tell people to go watch it, even while it's on Amazon.
And I think the acting thing, if that's something you want to continue to do, I think is going to work out quite well for you.
Yes.
Well, William, I really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for joining me here on Autism Stories. Jen, thanks so much for joining me here on Autism Stories.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
You know, I was just talking with the wonderful William Fitzgerald from the feature film Ezra. Not that long ago, your organization, Love and Autism, hosted an Evening with Ezra, a storytelling and screening event. Why was it so important for you and your organization to host this event?
Well, it kind of came as a surprise when my colleague Alex Plank and he's the associate producer on Ezra asked me to watch the screener. You know, I just really enjoyed the film. It wasn't just because I liked a good movie and there were some fun laughs. It was because it did something different with an autistic family system story that I haven't really seen before. Like, I think it just missed some of the common disability tropes, and it projected this idea that the universal themes of love and belonging are absolutely essential to the conversation around autism. You know, when I'm watching the event, I'm thinking, okay, this movie is bigger than Robert De Niro. I mean, it's really big, but like from a perspective of the autism story, if you will, bigger than Robert De Niro and Rose Byrne. And I felt like the message really shifted the narrative for us. And so I wanted to create this event, be able to really tell that story so that those that might not know how special this movie was, that they could feel that, or they could know that what they did here with this movie was really kind of push the needle. And then we just created this beautiful movie premiere, autistic-centered event, and it just really worked out lovely.
I wanted to ask you about your organization, Love and Autism, that you founded in 2016 and started as a conference with the belief that everyone deserves the highest quality relationships possible in their lives. So I'm not really familiar with any other conference that has specifically been for us as autistic people in terms of bringing love and focusing on the relationships in our lives. What did you learn about love and the autistic experience through this conference?
I have this mistake on my website that has only come up. My dyslexia gets in the way. Love and Autism actually started in 2012, and our first conference was in 2013. You pulled it right. It says 2016, but regardless, Love and Autism, even in the name, is quite unique, and it kind of shouldn't be. But it's almost like sad that we're in like 2024, and that the idea of pairing love and autism together is like, oh, it's an awakening experience in and of itself for some people. I still believe that it is kind of like the most cutting edge event. And when I used to go to all these other conferences, right? And like you still kind of see that token autistic person or like all these people, and then the panel loves the autistic story. And you have the behaviors, or you have the one guy telling his miracle story. And I leave these events and I just feel like this conversation is tired. This is like on the wrong side of history. And then like just one day in my head, the word love and autism popped up, and I thought, I think I'll do this. I think I'll do it differently. And so when we started our journey with Love and Autism, the conferences or this way of organizing our message. It was, I'm an experiential therapist as a marital family therapist, and that means that like change happens in the room. And so I wanted this conference to not be like everybody writing on their PowerPoints. They wanted people to experience what like I know about autistic people and what I know about humans, that everybody deserves love and everybody deserves like the respect of being humans. And I was just seeing that entirely being missed, even when people were trying to like do good or even when the expert voices are talking. So I think we did that, and I think that we do that, and it's sadly still unique.
Ezra's a film that has a focus on the relationship that an autistic teen has with his family members. Now you had just mentioned this, but you're a licensed family and marriage therapist. So I'm wondering what advice you might have for parents or partners of us as autistic people to best improve relationships with their autistic loved ones.
It's a great question. I bet I could like talk on it for like 13 days, but like in the most concise way. I think that sometimes we think of autistic people as this island that deserves a special strategy or something, and like, or that we handle with care. Like there's this like fragile package, or like we put on the autistic gloves to handle this group of human beings. And truthfully, it's like get on board with that idea and live it and think it and believe it in your heart that autistic people are human. There is an autistic culture that needs to be appreciated, not like who's stomped out. I think we do this through contending with our own learned and cultural ableism, our own kind of like limiting beliefs in some ways. I think we do this when we get autistic role models, when we engage with actually autistic people, when we stop kind of like othering the spectrum and we're like, oh, this is the bad type of autism, this is the good type. Like people do that. We still do that in this day and age. And so when we get the experience of living and loving beside an autistic person, that is not something that ever needs to feel like a burden. Like everybody's got struggles and strengths, but like this idea that humanity first, and when we contend as a belief in ourselves, and they're there, and I still unpack my own ableist thoughts all the time, where we really, really contend with that. I think what we could discover about ourselves is that when we can not be ableist in our actions, it actually matches our values, and it actually feels like love. And it doesn't even mean if it's just like your child and your partner or your best friend. It's like a way of walking through the world. And, what I've discovered right now is that, like we had that moment where it was like, okay, actually listen to autistic voices, which was like, wow, that's really amazing. Then it became like, why is this always on the backs of autistic people and make these changes, like contend with this negative discourse? And so I really think that the world needs to contend with this, autistic or not. And that's how we show up from a loving position. And I think that we all deserve to do it. And I think the world just becomes a just much better place when we're able to do that.
Yeah, we all have internalized ableism for sure. In researching to talk with you, I came across you kind of talking about your experiences and learning from those things, and saying like, what I did was probably not in the best interest of autistic people, but you kind of know what you know when you know it. So I'm just wondering, and I really appreciated, your honesty and authenticity in sharing those things. So I'm just wondering kind of how was that helpful to you in sharing those things? And because I think a lot of times there's a divide sometimes between us as autistic people and parents. And, I think we all want the same thing, but I think sometimes there's a clash there. So how did that kind of like impact you?
Well, I think that there's like just wherever you are, there's like almost a scarcity piece, right? Like, and when you're in a minority group, whether your minority experience is being an autistic person, or that, having an autistic child, or whatever that might be. I have an autistic wife. Sometimes we try to like scream loudest. We're like, hear my voice, hear my experience. And what it seems like is that there might not be enough room for all the stories. And, you know, what you do is you tell these stories, right? And what we need to realize is actually there is room. There is no scarcity of love, right? And so why I was able to do it is because every time I had an experience that didn't match, but maybe I was taught educationally or what I was experiencing in like a other setting about what it means to be autistic. I'm not going to ever have that lived experience. I'm not autistic. And so whenever I'd contend with something, I grind on the why. Where did this come from? Why am I holding on to it? You know, my limiting beliefs related to friendships, like that's one that, you know, maybe like 5 years ago or something that I really had to contend with. Like in real life, friendships are not the only way to do that. That discourse friendships are absolutely true relationships for mutual imbalance. Like, you know, I used to have this idea that this is all going to narrow into this in real life thing. And that's kind of a garbage thought. That's my way of thinking about friendships. That might be what works for me. And I had to figure out that kind of is something that might be a viewpoint that other people have and that doesn't necessarily serve like everybody, right? And so that's how I do it. And what I've discovered is that when I can do that, it actually makes much better sense. There's not this like rub or push or like, this would make you happy or this would make you struggle less. It's actually like, wow, I just saw you for who you are. And now I can serve you as a therapist as you are and absolutely work towards whatever your struggles are at that time in your life.
So I'm wondering about the future of Love and Autism. What's your vision of what you would like or plans you have for the organization in the future?
Oh, gosh, I really actually love vision and creating. I think that's a really exciting part. We just re-envisioned our logo as part of this new journey. We actually had a little issue like a bit ago where, you know, somehow Autism Speaks took all of our traditional, our first colors when they rebranded with their quote-unquote love message. And gosh, that really stung. I was like, oh my gosh, those are my colors. That's like a weird version of a message there. And so I just kind of got demoralized by that, to be honest. I was like, that was mine. It was so beautiful. But you know what? We just reinvented or re-envisioned it. We put gold in and we kept the pink, our pink. And the reason why gold is so cool or so powerful is that like, I think of gold as glimmers. And when I think about where we are in autistic space, I just think of all of these traumas that are system traumas, like that are being done by the world, not internally. And I just think, find the glimmers, you know, like the glimmers are there everywhere. And so when I think about the gold in this new re-envisioned kind of logo, it just actually is a glimmer to me. And I really hope that Love and Autism becomes other people's glimmers. So right now we're in this full planning stage of what I haven't named yet, but it's like an autistic experience. Alex Plank and I were like, you know what? Conferences are so 2019. We're going to like make like this festival type of thing where we've got autistic comedy and who knows what else there will be. But this really autistic centered, creative, growth centered event with a lot of diversity. It's within the culture, you know, of autism. There's a lot of ways to be autistic, so we're able to represent the intersectionality pieces. What happens to me after a Love and Autism event is I just leave with something that can carry me. Like it's fun, you know, it's beautiful when it happens. And I think to myself, wow, that's it. Like that is what's right and good. And so when we create this experience, we're almost reverse engineering it for that like a really beautiful emotional space. And that just like excites me. So like we get in, those of us that love and autism in the planning stage, we get into this huge creative space of what we don't like, what we see still, but we still like how to push it further. So that's where we're at now. We're hoping that we get our stuff together for February 2024. somehow put like a movie premiere together in like 2 months. So I really feel like we can do this. We kind of have to stay tuned on the date in some ways.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because I feel somewhat like that about conferences. And last year I founded and organized a festival. It was called the Neurodiverse Culture Festival. What? Yeah, and just, yes. Yeah, we'll have to talk about it more, but just the whole purpose of that festival was that so much of our communities are not accessible and not inclusive to us as autistic and neurodivergent people, and to be able to bring that together, because there's so much need for community and so much for love, and because of the way our communities are built, this is not often accessible to us. So yeah, we'll have to talk about that.
Now, even when we do accessibility, first comment is like, wow, I love it. And like, it's always so awesome to discover like somebody else is here, like somebody else is absolutely in the bubble. Then you almost get the warm feeling like we're finally doing it. There's a lot of us. So that's always like exciting space, and absolutely let's connect on that. And then, the other case, you see all these events where it's like even the accommodations or the accessibility, it's like this ableist spin to it. And that is like, it feels tired. And so, when we can like do autistic culture and feel it and be in it, and having autistic people guiding that experience and non-autistic people being, within that culture, I think it's really amazing stuff.
Absolutely. And lastly, how can our listeners learn more about you and Love and Autism?
Yeah, so right now we do our, at Love and Autism Instagram, and got our Love and Autism Facebook page. Actually just got creative and did lots of merch. I'm not actually drinking wine right now, but some fun things like this. I love wine. I like wine and neurodiversity. And so that's kind of linked up. Our Shopify is linked up on our Instagram. We're doing a big relaunch of our website, but it's still in kind of the pandemic hit and everything kind of slowed the stage. But we are doing newsletters again, so people can subscribe on the website and like recognize that, this information might be, needing a little update. So we're doing that. I'm also a person that's like really accessible in terms of just like human to human conversations. I think that so often we feel like when somebody's in the like Dr. Jenny Palmiotto saying that, you're like, oh, I can't ever reach her. And what I found is like that might not be something that works for all of us to be, exclusive or not reachable. So, I'm really reachable. All my information is online somewhere on Google. And I do like to help people tweak a moment in their lives or have a good conversation. Like you and I just discovered that we are into festivals, autistic culture festivals at the same time. So those kinds of discoveries only happen when we talk to each other. That's how you find out about us and not only find out, but just like, engage and connect within these experiences.
Well, I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining me here on Autism Stories.
Oh, thank you so much. It's always fun.
Thanks so much to William and Jenny for the conversation. Did you know Autism Personal Coach provides neurodiversity affirming support by autistics for autistics? We empower autistic adults and teens to lead self-directed, purpose-driven lives through our customized life coaching and community groups. Our distinct approach prioritizes each client's unique goals and preferences, fostering a sense of agency and promoting self-advocacy. Coaches work collaboratively with clients to develop personalized strategies and tools that can help with executive functioning, emotional regulation, relationship building, stress management, and much more. We also support parents and partners of autistic individuals by providing insights and guidance to bridge communication gaps and nurture mutual understanding. With our accessible remote services, individuals from any location can receive the assistance and mentoring they need. Join us today to experience judgment-free coaching rooted in empathy, expertise, and respect for autistic identity. Until next time, I'm Doug Bletcher of Autism Personal Coach. Talk to you then.